We got a lot on the agenda, so we're going to kind of start moving. But welcome to week 2. Last week was a heartbreaker, right? This week, we're going to break your minds a little bit. In front of you, you have a clipboard. On that clipboard, you're going to write the lies that you tell yourself. All right, to give you an example, because I like self-deprecating myself, welcome to my lies. These are all the things I tell myself. Hey, Miss Raven, there's a clipboard if you'd like to write down some of the stuff that you tell yourself. Good or bad, right? Most of mine were negative, but that's okay.
I love how yours towards the top is like what's
I'm fine? Yeah, that was the one that really hit. I like telling myself things that I think are true. For instance, I wrote, I'm fine, I have to be perfect, I should have it figured out, God won't show up for me, I don't need help, right? These are all the lies that we tell ourselves on the daily. So, as you guys start filling out your list, I'll be teaching, and you guys, when you're done, you will fold it, put your name on it, we'll put it into our capsule for a couple weeks from now. Well, today's lesson is going to start with a question, and all right, there is a right answer to it, so I seriously need you to decide what you would choose, cake or salad. That was quick. You got to really think about it. Okay. All right. Why did you say salad?
Because I'm pregnant, I wanted to be fresh.
Okay. That's a good. Why'd you say cake?
It's delicious.
Okay. All right. I was thinking more deep, like
I'm not eating right.
emotionally. Why did you choose cake? All right.
What makes you feel good?
Okay. All right. Here's the question I'm going to ask you after this. Why that choice? Who decided that? What identity were you protecting, right? It seems like she's protecting a little one. You like cake. I like cake. But the question, when you were reading that in your head and you were like, yeah, cake or salad, did you hear cake or salad in your head? Somewhere behind the eyes, between the ears. Okay? That voice. What is that voice that we're hearing when we're making decisions and walking through life and we're telling lies about ourselves? Who is that? Right? Who is talking inside of your head? That's what we're going to break down, and I promise we'll get biblical. But if you had to guess who that voice is, what would you guys say?
When I hear that voice, I always think, depending on what it's saying, that it's like a little angel and devil sitting on my shoulder.
Okay. All right.
Like
That's
the good and the bad, depending on what it's saying. Sometimes they go the wrong direction.
okay. I'm gonna blow your mind here. It's called the ego. Okay. Now, the voice that is inside of your head is not you. It is called the ego. However, we seem to mistake that voice for who we are, right? And that voice can tell us lies sometimes, like we're not enough, or we're fine, or we're just going through the motions, or you're never going to get there, right? And this ego gets built up over time. Now, psychologists like to talk, hello, you look nice. Psychologists like to talk about the ego. I'll let you guys get settled. You're fine. Psychologists like to talk about the ego, and they talk about it like a radio station. So, when you're in your car, your radio is on, and it's saying things to you. Now, you are not the radio, but the radio is playing. And if you sit there long enough, years and years of that radio playing inside of your head, people seem to mistake themselves as part of that radio station. The ego becomes who you are. Now, if we know God and what he says we're made of the body, we're made of the spirit, and we're made of the what? The soul. It does not say anything about the ego. The body is our flesh, right? It is what we walk around with. It is the thing that causes us to sin. It is the awful parts of us, but it was also what God created and was perfect at a time before we made sin, right? And made a choice that brought sin into the world. He breathed into us. It says our spirit is sitting in heavenly places. So If our spirit's sitting in heavenly places and our body is stuck in this world, what is our soul? And why is the ego, the voice in our head, telling us things and blocking that communication, right? The soul is the tether between our body and our spirit that's sitting in heavenly places. And the closer that you are to the body, the more that ego likes to talk. The closer you are to God, the less you hear that ego. Okay? What radio station are you tuned into? Now, Romans puts it this way. It's talking about the body, okay? As it is no longer I myself who do it. He's talking about sin, right? But it is sin living in me. Okay, so the body, sin, spirit, sitting in heavenly places, and then you have the soul. Now, theologians believe that the soul is isolated somewhere around the heart. But every time that we're making decisions like cake or salad, we're listening to something inside of our head. Why? That's the question. Okay, so remember those terrible questions that make you think way too much and shatter your brain? Because that's what I did this week. Let's read this one. You hear your thoughts, so how could you be them? It's a good question. Now, a lot of the times our ego gets built up, right? Oh, I'm this way, so I'd never do that. Or, oh, I can't do that because I'm not good enough, right? There's a continual thing, and it's easy to observe the ego when you start understanding how he speaks. He speaks in I's. I am not this. I am not that. I can't do this because of that, right? I's. How does the soul speak? In him, right? God said this. God said that. Now, this is the lesson that we're going to be talking about today. It is called the self I call me. All right. Last week we discussed a lot about labels. That's external things that are given to us. They're having fun out there. And this week we're talking internally, the labels that we give ourselves, right? The things that we talk to ourselves. So what are you calling yourself? That's what you're writing down on that paper. That's what we're going to put into a capsule. We're going to have to get rid of these things, okay? So I want to introduce you guys to Babylon. It's called the Empire of I, okay? If there was an ego and it was a city, it would be Babylon. Who knows the story of Babylon? Anybody? All right, it's in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel starts off with this empire that was given over by God to take Israelites captive. God even allowed them to take like the Holy of Holies and all this stuff, because if you touch it, you would die. It was like a whole thing. But God was like, no, I'm giving them to you for a time. Okay? Now, the king of that time, first king, there was a couple, but the first king of that time was known as Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was ruthless, all right? His kingdom was grand. They had walls that were so thick you could park like 7 F-150s across it and just drive straight. Like, it was huge, okay? It was the city of gold. And his ego started getting built into the city. And his ego started taking over, right? Now, one night he's having a dream, and it's a prophetic dream, and we don't have to get into that today, but we will at some point, right? And it's talking about the fall of Babylon. And he's picturing himself as this big, beautiful tree, right? And it gets cut down. And only a stump is left. Now, there's a lot of symbolism in this dream. Again, we're not going to go into it. But I want you to see kind of Nebuchadnezzar's mindset. Okay, so this is in Daniel chapter 4:3. He said, is this not the great Babylon that I have built? Look at that. I have built as a royal residence for my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty. There's a lot of my and I's in there, ain't there? Now, as we look at our lives, there are times where we feel like there's a lot of my and I. Oh, I'm a good employee and I work hard. They should promote me, right? Or, oh, I'm this or I'm that. But Nebuchadnezzar was a really strong king. He was ruthless. And he started equating himself with the ego, right? And his ego was shown through the things that he had. It was glorious. It was huge. It was mighty, right? And it was for his majesty. But God gave him a warning in that dream. And he asked Daniel for some help to decipher the dream. And he says, hey, God will cut you down. And things go on for a little bit. And about a year later, I guess he decided that it was never going to happen, that God wouldn't cut him down. And sometimes judgment comes slowly because God is merciful, right? He is slow to anger. But if he says something, he does it. And his ego was telling him, I'm good, it was just a dream. Now, if you know the story of Nebuchadnezzar, all right, this ain't The Walking Dead, he becomes a beast in a field. God cuts him down. He forgets who he is. He becomes like animals grazing grass in a field, hairy, long-nailed, for 7 years. Because his ego wouldn't stop telling him how great he was. You ever heard the term, Satan likes to stroke your ego? He's not stroking your soul. He's stroking your ego. Why? Because if he can get you to say things about yourself, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. He's like, yeah, you are, for sure. Oh, I'm never going to be good enough. Yeah, that's right. Stroking the ego. And Nebuchadnezzar's ego was so huge that the fall hit so hard. The bigger you are, the harder you fall, right? So, let's go to one of those questions again. If the ego loses its trophies, do you disappear? The ego likes its trophies, all right? Nebuchadnezzar liked his city. He liked acquiring things. He liked who he was because he felt this way, because he felt so good about all the things that he had, right? And when that disappeared, he was left in a field eating grass. Now, in our lives, we start collecting things, right? Oh, my job's paying me more, right? So I'm going to start, I can buy this. I can afford that truck, right? We start adding to our life. We start collecting things. And we start looking around the walls and we start seeing our ego is placed around us. Now, the problem with the ego is that you can't stop it, okay? And like if you look at Buddhists, here's a good one. They like to meditate and they say, sit and just let the thoughts come and let them go, right? And then people are like, well, I'm thinking so hard about making these thoughts go. And he's like, yeah, because you can't stop the ego. It's impossible. But what you can do is you can observe it. You don't have to act on every thought that comes into your head, right? If the ego is saying something, you are the observer. Has anybody ever watched Mr. Robot or Fight Club? Okay, all right. Which one? So I can know. Fight Club. Okay. Remember when he's in the car? Now he's in the passenger seat, the main character. And Tyler Durden is driving the car. Now Tyler Durden, if you don't know, and I'm not trying to ruin it, is his ego. And his ego is steering that wheel, and he takes his hands off and he says, what happens if I don't touch the wheel, right? He's like, why are you so worried about your life, right? And the car crashes. He let his ego take over because he felt little. Now, there's a whole bunch of other conspiracy theories inside of that movie that I don't feel like going into, but it gives you a visual picture of who it is. And Mr. Robot is going through therapy sessions, and again, not trying to ruin the movie, but it's another Fight Club situation. Or show, sorry, it's a show. And the therapist is talking to him about like this observer. And he's like, sometimes I just feel like I'm the observer watching things pass by. Now, our ego lives in our head and our soul lives here. Why are we making decisions from here, right? When it makes sense. Oh, this makes sense. That cake looked good. That salad felt great. My body, I'm not trying to be body shamed, so I'm going to eat that salad. Or, oh, I really like cake. It feels good. Why are we listening to our thoughts? Why are we paying so close attention to what our body needs? God says to deny the flesh. And why does he say that? That seems kind of weird, but like, you ever heard of fasting, right? Denying the flesh could be fasting. It could be food. It could be whatever we're participating in. It could be phones, social media, because we're feeding ourselves, right? Now, to deny the flesh means I want this because it's something that my body wants. And God is like, no, instead, you're going to pay attention to me. That is how you feed your soul. We're getting close to Thanksgiving, and soul food is coming around the corner. All right, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese. I love it. And we do that one time a year. Why don't we feed our souls more often? You know? So, I want to talk a little bit more about the ego because the ego is very similar to pride. And pride comes before destruction, and an arrogant spirit before a fall. So we want to talk about pride. What is pride, right? Here's a perfect example. Corinthians. Let him who thinks he stands take heed, lest he fail. Or at least he fall, sorry. God is giving consistent biblical warnings to you about standing in pride. Pride of life, pride month, pride anything. Started with one action. Does anybody remember the very first act of pride? Lucifer was that first act of pride. Now, before that, I want to point attention to who God is, okay? God likes to say, I am who I am. Not, I am a great God, and, oh, my kingdom is great. No, he just says, I am who I am. There's no labels. There's no insecurity. There's just being, okay? Now, Satan was the complete opposite. Satan was adorned with gems, and he was made to worship God. And one day he looked in the mirror too long and started admiring himself. Now, that same act of admirance led him to think that he was going to be greater than God. His ego started grabbing a hold of him. So let's look at this one. If your thoughts can argue with you, which one is you? Okay. So sometimes I'm in a critical situation in my life, all right, and I am at a crossroads, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do. My head says one thing, my heart's telling me another. If I can argue with myself inside of my head, but I think my identity is rooted in my ego, which identity is me? It's confusing. Because you think that you're this thing, that you've been sitting in this radio station for too long and you have become this person. But if you look at actors, like, they can just switch it on a dime. Like, they're this one day. Look at Shia LaBeouf. Now he's like in a gang and like his ego changes with his roles. If our ego can change and our personalities can change, who are you? It goes back to that last week. So going to the origin of sin of the ego, we're talking about Lucifer, right? Ego wants God's throne. It's going to do anything it can to throw you off your path, all right? And the first ego was Lucifer. Again, adorned with gems, thought he was beautiful. And he says to himself, right here, Isaiah, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Now, we've seen that same sentence before. I will be like the Most High. Where do we see that? Oh, wait, that's right. In Genesis, when Eve was in the garden, when everything was perfect, and he says, if you eat this, he doesn't want you to because he knows you'll be like the Most High. Stroking the ego. Why is he trying to have us replicate the same thing that caused him to fall? Why are we listening to our egos? So, why does your ego care more about being right? More than being free? There's a lot of times, like, men and women get into this argument. They say, oh, the woman's always right. But, like, the man in his head, he's like, yeah, sure, you're right. But, like, he thinks he's right? It's a fun one. It's a constant battle that we deal with. But we also do that with our ego. The ego has to be right all the time. We have phones now. When we go on to Google, I can say that Christmas lights cause cancer. And my feed will now tell me everything about Christmas lights that cause cancer. And someone else can say, Christmas lights do not cause cancer. And tons of stuff will pull up. We're feeding our egos continuously throughout the day. The best way to feed your soul is with the Bible. But we spend more time on Google. We spend more time on our social feeds that are custom made for us, right? Some people's feeds are toxic. Some people's feeds do this. Like, why? So let's look at Jesus. Now, Jesus was the perfect example of how to live a life. Does that mean that he listened to his ego? No. See, Jesus moved through life saying what? He even taught us how to pray properly. Let your will be done, not mine. Remember that? Everything that he did was for God's will. Okay? When he was hung onto a cross, they were shouting to him. They said, prove yourself. It's your God. Take yourself off. You know, before he got on that cross, he was crying in the garden, and he said, God, if you can, take this cup from me. Like, if there's any way. Because he didn't want to go on it. His ego was telling him not to. But God said he had to. And he said, it's your will, not mine. And if he had listened to his ego, we would be dead in sin. We would be eternally in hell because there was no way to atone for sin. But Jesus had to do something. And he listened to his Father. He kept his eyes on heaven. So, let me ask you another one of those questions. Without applause, because the ego loves applause, man. If you're doing something great and there's cheering for you and you feel great, right? The ego hears applause. Without it, do you still exist? See, God calls us into lives, and sometimes those lives are full of isolation. Sometimes he's humbling us in seasons. Sometimes he's protecting us in those isolation seasons. And I'm going to speak from personal feelings here. I used to crave applause. Like, with everything that I did, I wanted a cheer. I wanted to know that I was doing something right because I was hoping that the world would be able to give it to me. But when the applause didn't come, and I'm sitting in these seasons of isolation, and God's keeping me in these isolation seasons, and I'm wondering to myself, am I even on the right path? Sometimes those isolation seasons tell you that you are. It's stripping you away from that ego. It's suffocating the attention that you're craving so your soul can breathe. The same thing that we do with fasting. We're suffocating our body from what it needs or what it wants so we can give our soul what it needs. All right? The chair is the body. All right? And the speaker over there is God. And like the closer that we get to God, the further away we are from our body, right? The further we are away from ourselves. The more that our soul gets the attention of the Spirit. It starts healing it. But the closer that we get to the body, the more we start taking on those cravings. Addictions come in, right? The wants come in. And some people have completely written off God. I was an atheist for 10 years. Cut it. It's just me. It's just my soul and my body now. Oh, God. And like, life seemed pretty easy for a while because I could do whatever I wanted. It seemed great. But we're a three-part being. Body, soul, spirit. And a lot of the times, the devil wants us to be a two-part being. You know what also is a two-part being? Animals are two-part beings. All right, they do have a soul, they do have a body, but they do not have the Holy Spirit living in them. That is us. That we are created in God's image. And God was a three-part being. Holy Spirit, Jesus, the Father. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, Paul writes about this. Paul was very honest in his writings to his churches. Granted, it seemed like he only liked one of the churches, but that's just Paul. All right, he was correcting people, and it says it's okay to correct people. And he's talking about the death of an ego. Not specifically, he doesn't say it's the death of an ego, but I want you to read this. It says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ who lives in me. And the life which I live now, live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Now, why do you think Paul was trying to teach the churches to crucify themselves? Why do we get baptized? Because that's what that is, right? We're saying we're walking with God now. Why is he saying that we need to crucify ourselves and carry our cross daily? Like it's a continual thing to do this. It's not easy. He didn't say it was going to be easy. Do you see easy on that at all? I don't. But he's saying that we need to live by the faith of the Son of God. Now, a lot of us struggle with faith. Wrote a whole book on it, right? Called Losing Faith. And why are we struggling with faith? I don't see God moving in my life. I don't know why he doesn't want me, right? Is he even around? Does he even exist? Have you died to yourself, or are you living in the ego? The ego does not like to be called out. All right, like I said, last week we were working on the heart a little bit. All right, this week we're working on the mind, and the mind likes to fight itself. We have to learn to crucify ourselves. He even says this. I love this image because, that was me as a kid. Become like a child. Why does he say become like a child? That seems kind of weird. How much time do I got? Have you ever noticed a kid like around age 5? If a kid is told to do something, they do it, right? Oh, mom said I have to do this, so I'm going to take the trash out, right? They don't ask questions. Sometimes they do. I don't know. Let's see. On top of that, they believe anything that you tell them. If they say the sky is purple, right? If you're like, yeah, the sky's purple, son. He's going to be like, okay, the sky's purple. And he's going to run into school. He's going to tell everybody. He believes. He has faith that his parents will come through. They have no egos, right? They have personalities. That's the soul. The soul makes decisions. It can. It can have your personalities. Have you ever seen Inside Out? Yeah. Inside Out, great movie. You got little things controlling the board. Sometimes fear grabs a hold of that board. Sometimes anxiety. If you notice, when he does that, it brings you closer to the body. But when joy is on the other hand, and joy comes from what? The Spirit? Oh, that's right. It's a fruit of the Spirit. Brings you closer to God. Now, kids are full of joy. And Jesus is saying, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become like a child. Now, people tell me I act like a child, all right, and I thought that was an insult. Maybe it is. However, I'm starting to think that I might be on to something. For some reason, this internal happiness that I sometimes have, all right, sometimes I'm dealing with depression, that's fine, but like this forever young mindset that I seem to have. Maybe that's God's way of letting me be like a child. I want you to read that verse, and I want you to think about all the times that the world is telling you have to be an adult. You need to act like an adult. You need to be like this. Like, why aren't you grown up yet? All right? When we're kids, we want to be grown up, and then when we're older, we want to be like kids. The world is always telling you things. Your ego is always telling you things. And God says, become like a child. Die to yourself. Get rid of the ego. Because your soul needs to be able to move. Now, when we say that we're hearing from God, right? Where do you guys feel that when God is talking to you? Because we always say it's a small voice, but like, where do you feel it? You feel it behind the eyes and between the ears? You feel it in the heart? Where do you feel it? Where? Yeah. Now, here's a funny one. It also says the heart is deceitful in the Bible, okay? But it's not saying all the time. There are times where, like, we follow our eyes with lust and we fall into that trap because our hearts are constantly open. We love everyone, or we're supposed to. That's what God says, right? We're supposed to love everyone, but sometimes that gets us hurt, and that pulls us back to the body and pulls us back to our ego, and we keep going into these loops where we're cutting off God and we're staying closer to the body. And our soul can't live that way, because when that happens, your ego then turns into pride. And when that pride happens, you start collecting trophies and saying how good that you are and how everything is great. And I don't need God. It seems like it's fine. You see the loop? Okay. Now, here's one of those questions again. If God calls you his, why do you call yourself anything less? For years, I said I didn't need God. Right? I said, I don't want him. Until one day I needed him. And now I'm his. And like what his will is 10 times better than whatever I could come up with on my own. And if he can bless it, even better. And if he doesn't, he's probably teaching me something, right? But we listen to our ego, and God is calling you his, but Satan wants you to fall. And so those things that you wrote down on your paper, you can look at them if you want. You don't have to, but you probably know what they are. That's Satan stroking your ego. That's him trying to keep you away from God. That's him trying to keep you away from what he says that you are. And if you keep listening to that same radio station that you've grown up with, and it happens because we've had to protect ourselves, right, from pain. We've had to make hard choices. But every time you're supposed to see God through those hard choices. My favorite verse, be still and know that I'm God. Now, when I was about to commit suicide, and I was inside of a bathroom, and then on the wall, there was these vinyl stickers that said, be still and know that I'm God. And I'm staring at it, and I'd walked past it thousands of times, and I'm not paying attention to it, right? I'm like, why did I want to kill myself in the first place? I cut off God. My soul was a two-part being. It was not connected to the spirit, which gives us life. And I'm seeing this, be still and know that I am God. God knows who he is. And he's not going to change it. He never changes. The same God that drove people out of Egypt is the same God that can drive you out of your problems, right? We say that all the time. Never changing. He is who he is. And we're over here changing who we are by the day. Oh, today I'm going to go and dress up and go to this fancy thing and pretend that I'm better than I am. Or, oh, today I'm just going to sit in bed because I'm tired. And God's like, dude, like, I got plans for your life to prosper you. And you're over here watching Netflix and chilling. And he says to be still and to know that I am God, that he does not change. And so I'm standing in this bathroom. I'm trying to make that ultimate choice because I feel like I made so many bad choices. It's probably better if I just end it, right? Maybe I won't be a burden to people anymore. And that's where he changes my life. Seems stupid. Vinyl sticker that someone bought on Amazon that's stuck on their wall, right? But it changed my life. And to this day, I will never not look at that sticker. And some days I'm going through tough things, and he's like, be still. And I'm like, you know what? I'm stressed. And you're right. Maybe I just need to get back into your word. Maybe I need to deny my flesh for a minute and get closer to you. Maybe I'm living too much in my ego. See, I brought a mirror out, and a lot of us like to look in the mirror. How's my hair today? I don't have hair, right? Do I look good? Did I put on a nice sweater? Do I look presentable, right? Sometimes after a shower, do I need to exercise here? Like, what's going on? Do I need to work my glutes? Like, what are we doing, right? I'm paying too much attention to this. Now, do you guys remember Lion King? I know I keep giving you guys movie references, but it just feels right today. Do you remember in Lion King when he's looking in the water and he's seeing himself? And then he looks up and he sees who? His dad.
That's not my father. It's just my reflection.
No. Look hard. You see, he lives in you.
Now, there's a lot of symbolism in movies, and he's eating bugs, right? He's hanging out with Timon and Pumbaa, who aren't that bad of people, right? But he had an ego check there. And then it was time for God to make those changes. It's perfect. All right. So what I'm saying to you is if you can observe it, the thoughts going through your head, if you can actually sit there and be like, oh, wait, he's right. I can see what's going on in my brain. Then you are not your ego. You are a soul, a body, and a spirit. We're going to hop back to Nebuchadnezzar. Now, he's been in the field for 7 years, eating grass like an animal, hairy, nails grown. But God left that stump, remember? Because he knew that it could grow back. And it wasn't until he lifted his eyes and he looked to God and realized that the kingdom that he had built was nothing in comparison to what the sky looked like that God had built. God is bigger than we imagine. And he was humbled in that moment. Our ego hates when we're humble. It hates it. Because when we're humble, we're not looking at ourselves, right? Because there are better people out there, more qualified, better people, right? There's bigger gods out there. But we're humble enough to realize that God is so big and can do so many miracles in our lives that we're stepping away from the body and we're paying attention to him. We are denying our flesh continuously, crucifying ourselves daily, walking with God, carrying that cross. All right? So you have to stop looking at yourself and you have to start looking at him. And it is harder to do than I can just say it, okay? Sometimes I'm a good coach, but living it is tricky. And that's fine. It's going to take you time. But the key thing is to start observing your ego working and be like, oh yeah, why do I make these decisions that I do? It's going to be kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. Like, all week I was doing it. Like, my boss was driving me crazy and I'm getting stressed out. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm saying mean things. And I'm like, wait, why am I saying mean things about someone? I'm supposed to love everyone, right? And if you're lost and you're like, maybe you're getting stuck in the ego again, because it happens, you'll fall back. Hop back into your Bible. Deny your flesh. Fast. Whatever it might be. Hop off of social media, because those feeds are going to keep feeding you and they're going to keep stroking the ego. And so if you are not the voice, going back to last week, if you're not the voice in your head, who are you? That's what we're breaking down. Again, these lessons are not going to be fun. But if God has forgiven you, why hasn't your ego? I want to sit with that one for a second. God has forgiven us of every sin. I don't know how much time we got. Yeah, we got 2 minutes. God has forgiven us of every sin. He literally sent his son to do that. And when we get baptized, we say that we believe that he did that and we're going to walk with him. But our ego is a loud voice. It's constantly going off. And until you turn the dial and focus on him, right? And realize that you are forgiven of everything that you've done, everything that you will do, because you'll slip up. But your ego is going to tell you every time you slip up. And God says, focus on me. Remember when Peter was walking on water? What happened? How did he fall? He looked away from Jesus. When you look away from Jesus, your thoughts start coming in, okay? You have to turn off the dial. You have to stop looking at yourself. I mean, yeah, in the morning, you gotta do your makeup. You know what I mean? You got to. But that ego, that voice, that loud thing that's telling you you're not this, you're not that, you can never be that, God is saying you are. Turn the dial. I didn't realize this had a laser pointer. Okay. God, thank you for the opportunity to teach today. I want to thank you for giving us examples in the Bible of people that had pride in their life. God, that you were able to humble them and that they were able to come back to you. God, I ask that you fill their hearts with your love and that you show them the same thing. That you give them the way to turn off the ego and to focus on you. God, I ask that they run away from it, that they turn away and they just turn to you. God, that you fill their spirit with joy, peace, hope, love, that only your spirit can bring. Jesus, I thank you for what you did on the cross, that we are no longer stuck in this world of sin, but we can focus on you and move into your kingdom, God. I thank you for the opportunity to teach. I say these things in my Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, fold up your papers. I got to figure out how to open this thing again. I don't know the code. Let's see. I should. I think I do. Yeah. All right. I still have yet to read these, and I'm not planning on it. But you'll have to read them again in a couple weeks. No. Lord, no. To yourself. Because I want to see the change, and you're going to see the change in your life.